was in 4th grade, my mom decided for me that I was going to be in the band. And let me tell you, I was one angry 4th grader because in my mind, what's the point of learning an instrument? It's so irrelevant. Like, nobody plays clarinet anymore, and they're still cool. Also, I was the best basketball player on the Beersford 4th grade girls basketball team, and I didn't need to look like a complete nerd when I was a total beast on the court. And also, who cares about classical music? I mean, it was just a bunch of guys that wrote this random music 1,000 years ago, and they couldn't even hear what they were writing. Well, I presented these contentions to my mom, and although I had a pretty solid case, I still found myself in the band room at the end of my 4th grade school year trying instruments out. First, the band director handed me a flute, and I was all like, and I completely failed. Then, the band director handed me a trumpet, and I was all like, and I basically handed the trumpet right back to my band director. Well, we tried just about every instrument in the book, until finally, he handed me a clarinet. And I was all like, and that's what I've been playing ever since. But, unfortunately, according to a report by the National Association for Education, 2.1 million students are being denied the musical experiences that I and my fellow student musicians have been blessed to have due to budget cuts and the need for higher test scores. But, according to James Catterall, music enthusiast and education specialist, says that cutting school music programs are the worst things that a school could do for their students, especially those with learning disabilities. In this speech, I will be talking about the importance of music education. So, first, we'll start in the band room, where we will talk about arts and how they contribute to student development. And then we'll step over to the choir room, where we'll talk about the lifelong lessons that music teaches their students. And then we'll step into orchestra, and we'll talk about how the arts should not be cut from schools. So while writing this, I talked to my band director about the importance of music education and how it affects the fine arts, and how the fine arts affects the students. This led to a really long rant on my band director's part about how music teaches time management and respect and all that stuff like that. But he did state the fact that the fine arts helps to further develop students' brains. And well, apparently I guess that holds some truth. The arts contribute to student development. According to Mary Lawrenson, the executive director for the National Association of Music Merchants, young students benefit greatly from music. According to Lawrenson, exposing music to younger students helps them to develop general cognition skills, such as using their fingers to play piano or violin or any other instrument for that matter. Exposing young children to music also enhances their hearing as well as their eyesight. According to the Children's Music Workshop, music also helps to physically develop the left and right sides of the brains, because music is an odd mixture of creativity and emotions, which is the right side of the brain, and it also incorporates math and science, which is the left side of the brain. In fact, it has been proven that musicians' brains, even those of younger musicians, work differently than those of non-musicians. Dr. Eric Rasmussen of the Early Childhood Music Department at the Peabody Preparatory of the St. Johns Hopkins University, has said that children that have had music experience have a larger growth in neural activity than people that have not had any music training prior. So when children play an instrument, they're using more of their brains. They're using more of their brains in their non-musical cohorts. And at this point, you're probably asking, who cares about these younger kids? What about the high school and the middle school that will soon be entering the workforce? Well, according to a 10-year study that followed 25,000 middle and high school students, music students scored 44 points higher on the verbal and 63 points higher on the math part of the the SAT, than their non-musical cohorts. Also, a study produced by the U.S. Department of Education showed that students who participated in band or orchestra all throughout middle and high school years proved to demonstrate higher levels of math proficiency by grade 12. So, as my first point states, music education gives younger students a higher percent of brain usage than their non-musical cohorts. And for the older students, it raises test points on the SAT as well as the ACT scores. So not only can music boost test scores and develop cognitive skills, it can also help students to develop social skills and other necessary life skills. The arts teach lifelong lessons. Michael Matthews, a prestigious music educator, believes that music teaches students how to effectively use their time, because every responsible musician knows that practice isn't a matter of quality, but rather, music isn't a matter of quantity, it's actually a matter of quality. But, of course, every musician must have the responsibility to practice for not only the betterment of themselves, but also the ensemble. I believe that band programs teach leadership, teamwork, and give an overall sense of achievement. And, according to my band director, who has been teaching for a very long time, or a matter of 15 years, he believes that fine arts, he believes that music, as well as the fine arts in general, not only influence students' intelligence, but also their character. Music, if taught correctly, can influence the way students look at the world around them. By studying the arts, students can also become more rounded, giving them more life experiences, as well as giving students more opportunities to learn. So, in my last point, I highlighted that the arts give students more life skills that they can learn, such as leadership and responsibility. So, again, I was talking to my band director, and I asked him, why is music the first thing to go when the school goes through a budget cut? Well, he believes that schools don't truly see the value in the fine arts. So, in my third point, the arts should not be cut. According to James Catterall, a professor of education at UCLA, music programs are cut due to the push for higher test scores. But, according to numerous studies, the arts boost test scores, as I have said previous. And, on the topic of budget cuts, Catterall says that music programs are the first thing to go, not only because they have the most financial needs to fill, but also, on average, 20% of students that studied music in elementary and middle school stick music out through their high school careers. So, I don't think that this is a question of having to... I think that the music education debate isn't a matter of just getting more funding for music education programs. But I think first what needs to happen is that we need to get students more excited about music. Now, I realize that this is more easier said than done, because everyone loves music. I mean, look at your phones. They all have music on them, and your iPads. But the thing with students is that they don't want to put in the time to learn about music, or they just aren't interested in the classical selections that can be played and sung at school. So, I think the easiest thing to do would be to incorporate more relevant classes, such as jazz ensemble, rock studies, country music appreciation, classes like that. Because if you get more involvement in schools, then it will be more logical for schools and the government to give funding to music education programs. So, in my last point, I specified how teaching music education in a new way would provide better funding for music programs all around the country. Music programs all around the country have been cut due to budget cuts and the push for better test scores. But music has been proven to not only help kids academically, but also socially. Although these are great reasons to keep music programs around, they are not the greatest. Music teaches so much more than playing correct notes or rhythms or singing in tune. They also teach students humanity. And as a band student myself, I've seen the positive effects that music programs can have on its students. So, to recap, we first went to the band room, where we talked about the importance of music education on academics. And then we stepped over to the choir room, where we learned about how the arts teach lifelong lessons to its students. And finally, we ended up in the orchestra room, where we learned how the arts should not be cut.